Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you all are doing well. Today we're gonna build a full stack video gallery app that you can see over here. You're gonna be able to upload videos from your local computer, and once you upload it, we're immediately gonna show it over here in the gallery. So let's go ahead and upload a video for demo purposes. So I'm gonna go ahead and choose one, let's see. So let's choose a small one so it doesn't take too long. So we're gonna pick this one. And then you hit upload video. It's loading right now, which means the file is uploading. We are gonna give it a few seconds because these are pretty high quality video and we're not doing any optimization in the backend. So it does take a few seconds for the upload to happen. If you want, you could do this upload asynchronously, but in this case, I'm doing it synchronously. So yeah, as you can see, once the upload is complete, we go ahead and fetch the data again and show the most recent video at the first spot over here. For each of the video, you can go ahead and control them using all the controls over here. So you can play and pause, rewind, go forward, change the sound, watch the whole video in full screen, and even do picture in picture, something like this, and you can move this around. So yeah, we're gonna build the whole thing. When it comes to the tech stack we're gonna be using, our backend is gonna be in Python FastAPI. FastAPI is a backend framework of Python that you can use. It's pretty straightforward. I have a tutorial on how to use FastAPI if you wanna understand it better, but I'm pretty sure if you follow along, you can understand what's happening. That's gonna be our backend. We have a Docker container running with our Postgres database. And we also have a adminer image running, which is gonna give you a front-end web UI through which you can interact with your Postgres database. When it comes to the front end, we are gonna use a reactjs front end. It's gonna be a pretty simple front end, so everything is in app.js. We are not using separate components, which is what you would do in a production environment. We are gonna use a front-end framework called Chakra UI. This is gonna let us build the front end that you were seeing very quickly without using any CSS or HTML. So it's pretty handy to use Chakra UI as a framework. You're gonna see how we use it. Things like center, vstack, all these are Chakra React components that we can just drop in over here. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete the backend and then the front end code, and then we're gonna build everything from scratch, okay? So the first step is to go ahead and stop our existing code. So we're gonna stop our front end and stop our backend. There you go. And now if I go ahead and do a refresh, this should stop working, perfect. And now we're gonna start with our backend. So as a first look at the Docker file, I'm not gonna go into the details over here. I use this setup pretty much in all my videos. So if you wanna know in more details how this Docker file works, I would recommend watching one of the previous videos. But essentially I have two Docker images running. One is a database and one is adminer. Database is just a Postgres image, which is running on port 5432. And the password, username, and database name are defined over here. For adminer, this is the web UI, which is running on port 8080. So let's go ahead and see what it is really. So if we go to localhost and then go to port 8080, you get this one. So we're gonna choose Postgres, server is gonna be database, and then our username is gonna be Docker, password is gonna be Docker, and the database name is gonna be ExampleDB. So if you log in, you see your database over here. If we go to our video table, we can see it's a very simple table with 3 columns: ID, video title, and video URL. And if you select data, you can see these are all the videos that you were watching in the demo at the beginning of the video. So we will go ahead and delete all the data so that we can build everything from scratch. So for now, I'm gonna go ahead and select everything except one of them so that we can use that one for testing purposes. How do you delete it? There you go, delete. Okay. All right, so we're gonna keep one video only. For the schema, you can see we have 3 columns, as I mentioned. You have the show structure, there you go. So ID, which is an integer, auto-incrementing, video title, which is just a character, and video URL, which is also a varchar. So pretty simple schema. Now let's go ahead and start building our backend. Okay. So the first thing we're gonna do is import everything that we need. Use black. There you go. Okay. So I'm gonna collapse that. For importing, the first thing we need is gonna be our. Let me just have this over here. There you go. So we're gonna import Bodo3. This is the Python package that's gonna let us interact with AWS S3. Then we're gonna have our Postgres package to interact with the Postgres database. We're gonna import some typing list. And then we're also gonna import a base model. You're gonna see how all of these works. We're gonna import uvicorn to run our FastAPI. And then from FastAPI, we're gonna import the main FastAPI app and also upload file. Once again, you're gonna see how all of these fit together. And lastly, from FastAPI.middleware .course, we are gonna import course middleware. Okay. All right, now let's get a basic version of our app running at first. So we're gonna do app equals FastAPI. Oops, that's not the correct one. Now I have 2 FastAPIs. Okay. App equals to FastAPI. We're gonna set debug to true. There you go. And then we are gonna go ahead and create our first endpoint, which is just gonna be a status endpoint. We're gonna call it check status, and then we're just gonna return hello world. So this is just to see if our endpoint is working. Okay. And now the question is gonna be, how do you run a FastAPI app? So all you have to do is do the pretty boring name equals main, and then just do uvicorn. That's gonna be our app runner .run. You pass it your app. You give it the host, which in our case is gonna be localhost. You give it a port. We're gonna run it on 8000. And then reload equals false. It's not really needed, but I just put it there. All right, so now let us get our backend up and running. I'm gonna zoom in 1 level. Let me just delete everything. Zoom in another level. Okay, perfect. And now let's do Python 3 server.py. Okay, so we have our backend running. I'm gonna go to Insomnia, which is a Postman-like tool you can use to test your API. We're gonna wait for Postman to load. There you go. So we are calling our 0.0.0.0 port 8000. We're gonna call status. And you see we are getting hello world. So we know for sure that our first endpoint is up and running. Now let's go ahead and build our first actual endpoint, which is gonna get all our videos. Okay, so a few things we need to do before that. Firstly, we are gonna define a new class called video model, which is gonna inherit from base model that's coming from Pydantic. And this is where we are gonna define our model so that when you're reading from the database, you can easily convert it into a model. So our ID is gonna be int, our video title is gonna be string, and our video URL is also gonna be string. Okay. And then for our FastAPI app, you want to add a middleware over here, which is going to be our course middleware. What this is going to let you do is make cross-origin request from your front end to your backend. That's because your front end is going to be running on a different port and your backend is going to be running on another port. So when your front end is calling your backend, if you don't enable course, by default, the front end requests are going to get blocked by the browser. So we need to define it separately so that it doesn't get blocked anymore. So we are gonna go ahead and do app.add middleware, and then we're gonna give it the course middleware. We're gonna allow all origins, so everyone can hit this backend endpoint pretty much. This should be in quotation. There you go. And then we're gonna allow credentials to be set to true. We're gonna let course be overridden in all the methods, so all the HTTP methods. Oh my god. Okay. There you go. Allow methods, and then we're gonna allow all headers too. Okay. There you go. So this should let us call the backend from the front end easily. Now let's go ahead and create our first endpoint, which is gonna be the get videos endpoint. Okay. So it's gonna be app.get. The endpoint is going to be videos. The response model, which is the type of the model, is going to be a list of video models. Okay. And then we are going to define our function over here. So the first step is going to be to connect to our database. The way we do that is we use the package. There you go. And then do .connect. And then we pass it database, which is gonna be example DB. We give it a user, which is gonna be Docker. We give it password, which is also gonna be Docker. And then we give it a host, which is gonna be 0.0.0.0. Okay, so this should be enough to connect to it. Once we connect to it, we need a cursor to talk to the database. Okay, there you go. And now we pretty much execute the query, which is going to be very simple. We just do a select star from video, which is our table, order by ID descending. This makes sure that the recent videos are at the front, because if you recall from the demo, when we uploaded the video and refreshed the data, we were getting the new video at the front. And then once we execute it, we want to store all the rows, which is going to be fetch all. Okay, and now we need to format it so that our front end can get the data correctly. So formatted videos equals an empty list, and then we're gonna iterate through all our rows. For every rows, we're gonna append a new object called video model, and the first in that row, the first element is the ID. And then the next element is the video title. And then the final element is the video URL. Okay. So we have our formatted videos now. So we're going to do some cleanup, which is going to be closing the cursor, closing the connection, and then we're going to return formatted videos. Okay. So that should be all we need to get all the videos. Let's look at the database table. So as you can see, we have only one row in this table, right, with ID 2. So let's go ahead and restart the app. All headers, where is it? Admin over. Let's see. So this should be allow headers. Okay. So I don't need that anymore. Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and. Okay, so this is running. We're gonna go back to Insomnia, and if you recall from the code, our endpoint is videos. So we're gonna hit our videos endpoint, and you see we're getting a list with one object, which is the video in our database. If you look at the database, you see we had one. If we go ahead and edit it, let's give it the ID of 1. Oops, not 17. We want it to be 1. Oh, it's auto incrementing. That's why, I think. Can it? Oh, okay, we can give one. Okay, so we updated the data. Now let's go ahead and call it again. You see we're getting ID 1 now, so this is working correctly. So we're done with the first endpoint. Now, let's see. So we could do the last endpoint right now, which is gonna be uploading the photo to S3, but we could also move to the front end first. Let's actually go ahead and finish the backend. I think it's going to be easier that way, and then we can test it out later. So we know for sure that getting the videos work. Now it's going to be how do you upload a video. Okay. So that is going to be app.post. So it's going to be a post request to the same endpoint called videos. And we're going to send a status code of 201, which is like resource created. Okay, so we're going to call it add video. And then it takes in the request body. In the post is going to be a file object called upload file. Okay, so this upload file is coming from FastAPI. It's like a type. What this lets you do is when the front end sends the back end the file, if you define it as the upload file type, what FastAPI is going to do for you is extract a lot of important information about the file, such as the name of the file, the type of the file, and all those things. You don't have to do it manually. Okay, so the first step is going to be upload the file to AWS S3, because we don't want to store a video file in our database. I talk about that in 2 or 3 other videos. I'm going to link them in the description, or you can see a card somewhere to the top right. So for media, whether photos or videos, the best way to do it is store the media in S3 and store the URL of S3 in your database table. The example you see here is the video URL. This is the URL coming from S3, so the location where the video has been uploaded. Okay. All right, so let's see how you want to upload it. So the first thing you do is get a reference to your S3 client. There you go. And then get the bucket, which is going to be s3.bucket, and then the bucket name. Now I already have the bucket created, so we are going to just copy paste the name. Okay. So this is the name. It's called video-app-123. So I'm going to go ahead and use it over here. And the next line is going to be actually uploading the file. Okay. For uploading the file object, you need a few things. We do file.file to actually give it the object. And then we do file.filename to give it the name. And then we give it an extra argument called access control is public read. This makes sure that we give the new uploaded video public access, so anyone who wants can download it easily and watch it. Ideally, in your application, depending on your application actually, you can either set it to public read or just set it to private. It depends on your application. In our case, we are okay making this public. Okay, and now we need to construct the URL that the file was uploaded in. So that's very predictable. So we can have HTTPS. The first thing is going to be the bucket name. There you go. And then it's going to be .s3.amazonaws.com/ the name of the file, which is going to be file name. Okay. So that's how the URL is going to look like. Now that we know the URL, we can go ahead and store the URL in database. So once again, we're going to get a connection. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy paste that code because it's the same thing we're doing. So get the connection, get the cursor, and then execute the query. Okay. When it comes to executing the query, this time it's going to be an insert statement. We are going to insert video title and video URL because the ID is already auto incrementing. And the values is going to be, there you go. It's going to be file.filename, which is a string. That's why we're putting it in quotation. And then we are going to have the other one, which is going to be the uploaded file URL. This is going to be the video URL. All right, so the next thing is going to be to close the cursor first, and then close the connection. Con.close. How did I spell con? 2N? 2N. There you go. One thing we forgot is right after executing the query, we want to commit it so that Postgres puts the data from memory into disk. All right, so that should be it. I don't think we can test it out through Insomnia properly. I'm not sure how you do that. Can we? Post. Yeah, it might be a bit tricky to test it through Postman, so we're gonna test it through the UI once we do the front end. All right, so we should have our backend up and running. I'm gonna go ahead and restart it. And now let's move to our front end code, okay? So very similar to our backend for front end, we are gonna go ahead and delete everything. So everything is over here. I showed you everything is in app.js. So we're gonna delete everything except the import statements because I really don't wanna import everything all over again. I'm gonna explain all the import to show you what are we using and why, okay? All right, so I'm gonna get my code to my left. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete everything in between. Okay, there you go. And then we could just be returning a p tag with hello world. Yep, this is gonna be our app function, which is the only thing we're gonna be using. All right, so the first thing we want to do is go through the import statement. So we are using the Chakra UI framework and getting all these components. I'm going to go over them one by one. The center component is essentially HTML div tag with everything centered. Text is like a p tag where you can put in text. Heading is also like a h1 or h2. Button is literally a button HTML element. Input, very same. H stack is called the horizontal stack. So the child elements within the H stack is going to be aligned horizontally. So think of it as a flex box with flex direction set to horizontal. Container is just like a div. Simple grid is going to be literally a grid. We're going to use this to display all the videos in a structured grid format. Box is very similar to a div. When we use it, you're going to see how we're using it. Image is like an image tag in HTML. And spinner is a Chakra UI component, which is the spinner you saw to the right of the button when the upload is in progress. Apart from that, from React, we're gonna import useState. This is gonna be the state management, the local state management. useEffect, it's gonna be another hook we're gonna use to call the API. And Chakra Provider, we're gonna wrap everything in Chakra Provider. This is gonna let us use all the Chakra component. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is use the Chakra Provider to wrap everything, and then let's just put a hello world. Okay, now let's go ahead and start our front end using npm start. All right, we're gonna give it a few seconds to fire it up, and that should fire everything up. Where are we? There you go. So I am gonna go ahead and put it over here. Okay, so you see the hello world top left? That is coming from this over here. So you could essentially put it in the center component and give it a text called hello world. Let's call it hello world 2. Okay. And if we look at this over here, so you see everything is centered. That's what Chakra UI gives us, some very nifty way to do things that would have required a bunch of CSS and HTML otherwise. All right, so now let's start writing the code. The first thing is gonna be customizing this center so that everything is centered. We're gonna give it a background of black. We're gonna give the text a white color, and we're gonna give it some padding. Okay. Now within the center, we're gonna have a VStack. Did I have VStack? Yeah, I already had VStack. So VStack is just gonna stack all the child elements vertically. So within the VStack, let's say we're gonna have our heading, which is gonna be your video gallery. Oh my God, I can't type today. Okay. And then below that is going to be our text, which is going to say, take a look at all your uploaded videos. Okay. Let's see how it looks. So you see we have everything centered. That's because of the center element over here. And then the vertical stack, which is the child of the center element, has heading and text, which are going to be vertically aligned over here. So very cool to let you do some nice UI stuff without needing to write CSS. If we want to increase the spacing between the children, we can just do spacing 7, and you can see they're spaced out better. All right, so now it's gonna be the next thing, which is gonna be our horizontal stack. Okay, so for the horizontal stack, we're gonna have our input. The input is gonna be of type file, and then these are gonna be 2 functions. Right now we're gonna give them as null. So on change, and it's gonna take an on click, which is also gonna be null. Okay, so that's our input, and then we're gonna have our button. Okay, our button is gonna be called upload video, and we're gonna give it some props to the button component, such as the size, which is gonna be large, so LG. We're gonna give it a color scheme of red, and then by default it's gonna be disabled, so for now we're gonna do null, and then on click is also gonna be null for now. We're gonna write all these functions in a bit. Okay, so that should be our button. Let's go ahead and see. So now you see we have the upload video button, and then we have the choose file. So for the buttons is disabled, I'm gonna set it to true so that it's grayed out right now. There you go, you can click it. Okay. All right, now what else? Let's go ahead and make our API call. I think that's a good next step. So the first thing we need before making the API call is some local state to store the state changes in the app. Okay. So the first one is going to be called isSelected. So this is going to tell us if a video has been selected. Oh my god, if a video has been selected or not. We're going to start with false. Then we're going to store the selected file. This is going to be once the user set is selected. Nope. This is going to be once the user uploads the file, we're going to store it in this variable. At the beginning, it's going to be null. Okay. And then we are going to have another variable called all videos, which is going to be all the videos we're getting from our backend. At the beginning, it's going to be an empty list. What else? We are going to have another state called upload successful. This is gonna tell us when the upload is successful so that we can go ahead and refresh the data and get the new video. And lastly, we're gonna have a show spinner, which is gonna be literally, as the variable says, whether we wanna show the spinner or not. So we're gonna show it when the upload is in progress. Okay, so those are everything we need. Now let's go ahead and make the database call, the API call. So we're gonna use useEffect. Okay, and we are gonna trigger this every time upload successful, the value of upload successful changes. This is because when the upload is successful, we're gonna set it from false to true, and that means the API call is gonna happen again, and we're gonna get the new data. You're gonna see how it works in a bit. So we're gonna call our fetch. Actually, let me just copy paste that because I don't think it's anything new. You have seen this like hundreds of times before. All right, so we are fetching, so doing a GET request to our backend, which is running on port 8000, the videos endpoint. If you remember, that's this endpoint over here. We're turning it into a JSON, and then we don't need to log it. We're turning it into a JSON and then setting it in the all videos variable so that we can use it. And we have upload successful as the parameter here. That means whenever the value of upload successful changes, we are gonna go ahead and call this again. Okay. All right, so now let's display these videos that we're actually getting. Okay, so I'm gonna, at the end of the H stack, we're gonna have another heading, which is gonna be called your videos. So we have your videos over here. And now below that, it's gonna be our grid of all the videos. Okay, so we are gonna call it simple grid. We're gonna give it a few things like columns. We want 3 columns, and then spacing is gonna be 8 between the elements. Okay. Now that we have that, oh my God, what did I just do? Okay, so we could do this. Okay. All right, so we are gonna do all videos dot length not equals 0. Just to make sure we are not iterating through empty stuff. And then we're gonna do and. And now we're gonna map it. So we are gonna do dot map, and then for every video, okay. So for every video, we're gonna create a video object, a video HTML element. And that's gonna be taking in a bunch of attributes. The first one's gonna be source, which is gonna be the video URL, okay? And then we're gonna set it to autoplay so that it's always playing. We're gonna have the controls. We're gonna have it looping so that the video doesn't stop after it finishes one time. And we're gonna set preload to auto. This means that the browser is gonna fetch all the data to show you the videos before you need to click on it. All right, so that's all we have. We have a simple grid, and within that, we are iterating through all our videos. And then for every video coming from the backend, we are creating a video HTML element. Within the HTML element, we're giving it the video source. We're telling it to autoplay so that you don't have to click the play button. We are enabling all the controls so that you can mute, play, pause, full screen, and do all those things. We're looping it so that once it finishes, it automatically starts again. And we're setting preload to auto so that before you play it, the browser already goes ahead and downloads all the video. All right, so we're gonna do a refresh and see if it's working. It is not working. Now, why is it not working? Let's look at our backend. It seems like we are getting the requests. Okay, so this is gonna be a live debugging session right now. Right, so if we hit a refresh, so the call is happening and we're getting 200. Okay, let me change this to Chrome so that we can look at the logs and see what's happening. Okay. All right, this is gonna be much better for us now. All right, so if we go to the network tab and look at all the XHR requests, we are getting a 200 and we are getting the video properly. So that part is working. Then why are you not working if that part is working? Let's see. So we have all videos and we're setting all the videos. Did I miss anything? We're returning it. We have our simple grid, which is doing all videos not equal 0, and then we're mapping through it. Yeah, I mean, everything looks good here. Then why are we not seeing it? So we have the video URL, that's working too. There have our simple grid, all videos.length is not equals 0. I must be missing something. Ah, right. I'm not returning it, of course. So we need to return the video element, otherwise it's not gonna show up in the DOM. Okay, perfect. So we're mapping through it and then returning it. You already heard the sound. Let's go to the videos here. So let's not you, buddy. The other one, this one. We're gonna cross it out. And you see, this is the video, the one we're getting from the database, and it's working. Okay. Now let's see if the upload bit works, because that is gonna be the more interesting one. So we're showing all the videos correctly now. Okay. Now let's see how we wanna upload it. Okay. So right now you see we have our upload button grayed out. Now one thing at a time. For our upload button, for is disabled, we are gonna do it to not is selected, because if no file is selected, that's when this should be not disabled. Does it make sense? Like it should be like the other way around. Okay. So now you see it's grayed out because no file is selected. Once a file is selected, you should be able to click the button. Now we need some helper functions we are gonna define over here. The first is gonna be on input change. This is gonna be whenever a file is selected. We're gonna get set is selected is gonna be set to true so that the button shows up. And then the file that we just selected is gonna be set to selected file. Okay. So now we get set is selected and the selected file should be selected. Now if you go ahead, so it's grayed out. If we go ahead and select a file, which we're gonna do right here, once we go to the video directory. So let's choose like a small one, right? Let's choose you. Okay. You're still, why are you still like that? On input change and on button click. So on input change, set is selected to true. And the button is disabled. So let's see what's gonna happen. So is selected is set to false. This is gonna set it to true. That means not true, it's false. This should be going to false. Oh, right. So we need to put it in, where's our input? Input. So on change is gonna be this. Okay. Now if I do a refresh and select a file, this should work correctly. There you go, perfect. All right, so that's our first one on input change. And then we are gonna have our, what's that called? On file upload. Okay, that's gonna be our next one. Let's see, how is that gonna work? Right. So we are gonna go ahead and define it here. Okay. So the first thing we're gonna do is on file upload is gonna be the button handler. So our button on click handler is gonna be file upload. So right now let's just do a console log. Okay. So I'm gonna get the inspect tab out here. We don't really need to care about that. So if we select it and we hit upload video, you see we get button clicked. Okay. So that's our click handler. And you go mute. So now the first thing we want to do is set our show spinner to true so that the spinner starts showing. And the spinner is not going to show right now because we don't have the code for that. We're just going to go here. So it's going to be literally show spinner. If that is set to true, you actually show the spinner, which is we're going to center a line and then just do a spinner. That's all. Okay. And the size is gonna be, let's do the XL size. Now, I wish this video didn't show up like that. Is it not muted? Okay, let's put another attribute called muted to mute it. Okay. All right, so we go ahead and select a file. And once you hit upload video, the spinner should show up. There you go. So now it's indefinitely gonna keep showing because nothing is gonna toggle it back off. So we're gonna handle that in a bit. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is set show spinner to true. And then it's the fun part. So we're gonna have our form data. That's how we're gonna send our data to the backend. And then we're gonna append our data, which is gonna be called file. You're gonna give it the selected file and the name of the selected file. Okay. So we are sending the data to our backend using form data, not request body. Right now, at least. Okay. And then we are gonna do our classic fetch request. I'm gonna go ahead and copy paste that instead of writing it again. Okay, so what we're doing is we're making a post request to our videos endpoint. Okay, where did my code go? Yeah, so we're doing a post request, and the body we're passing is the form data, so the file that we just uploaded. We're setting the response to JSON, and we're console logging success posting, because this should only get triggered when the upload is successful. We're setting set upload successful, the variable, to like the opposite, so we're just toggling it. What that would mean is this is gonna get toggled, and we're gonna go ahead and fetch all the videos again. This is what makes sure that once you upload the video, we refetch all the videos and the new one is at the front. And then we just set our show spinner to false so that the spinner goes away. Okay. So now let's see if our upload endpoint is working. Okay, so this is the logs for our backend. We're gonna go ahead and upload our first food video. So this is loading. We're gonna give it a few seconds if you remember. Did our backend complain yet? Nope, so it should be processing. We're gonna give it a few seconds for it to finish processing. And there you go. So it finished processing, the spinner went away, we see the video at the front, and you see we're getting a 201 created. This is the post request, and immediately we're getting a 200 from our get when we are getting this. So I'm gonna go ahead and upload a few more of these, but some of them might take a while because they are larger in size. But let's go, because you can see like, oh my god, like some of them are pretty large in size, so it is gonna take a while, but we're gonna give it a few minutes. There you go. So we have our next video over here too. Let's do the pizza one. So you can see that every time a new video is uploading, we are toggling the upload successful toggle. Is it even? Yeah, so this one is being toggled, hence we're refetching all the videos. Pizza is still uploading. So yeah, as I mentioned, you can do the upload asynchronously and then keep polling the backend to see if there's any new data. But yeah, in our case, we don't really care about the wait, so I made the whole thing synchronous. I'll go ahead and do like 2 more. That's a 30-second video. You're gonna take a long time. Let's do this one. Once again, you hit upload video, we hit the backend. Right now, the photo is being uploaded to S3, and the URL is being written to the Postgres database. Whenever that's done, we're gonna return a 201, and the front end is gonna get all the videos again. There you go, and we see the new video. We're gonna do one more. Let's do like a big boy this time. Let's do this 30-second video. Okay, this should take a pretty long time. So we're gonna give it a few seconds again for the upload to work. While we're looking at that, let's go ahead and look at our backend code. So in the post endpoint, what essentially is happening? There you go. That was quick. We're gonna do another one while let's do like where's the lighthouse? That's a good one. That's not the lighthouse. Are you the lighthouse? Maybe that's the lighthouse. Let's do that one. So once we hit upload, what's happening is the front end is sending the file to the backend. The backend is uploading it into S3, constructing the URL of the destination where the file has been uploaded, storing the URL in the database alongside an ID and the name of the file, and closing the connections and returning the 201. There you go. So we got that one too. There's like a lighthouse video, which is pretty cool, but I can't find it for some reason. So we uploaded this. Maybe you? No, it can't be you. Well, let's do this one. Might be that one. Yeah, because I think that's like the most high resolution one, so that can take like a long time. Alright, we're gonna give it a few minutes again. These are not taking minutes really, these are taking seconds, so we shouldn't really have a problem. Yeah, we're gonna give it a few more seconds, and while that goes on, yeah, hopefully like the front end code made sense. I'm gonna link everything in the description, so you can take a look if you want to, and maybe recreate the whole thing. You're gonna learn the best that way. Yeah, this is like a very high resolution video, but hopefully it works rather than just failing. So we're gonna give it a few more seconds. Right. What else is there to talk about here? So we talked about the state variables. We talked about the React hook that we're using. We talked about all the Chakra UI components. Nothing really, nothing else. The index.js is pretty simple. We're just showing the app component. Holy, that's taking a long time. All right, we'll let it run for a few more seconds. Did our backend break? No, it did not break, so we'll let that keep chugging along. So yeah, we talked about the backend, everything. We talked about the front end too. I have a pretty similar video, which is creating an image gallery as opposed to a video gallery. So if you want more practice, you can take a look at that too. That is very, very similar, except we upload photos, not videos. I'm gonna link that in the description too if you want to take a look. Yeah, I don't know when this is gonna be done. I'm gonna give it a few more seconds and then we're just gonna call it quits. Okay. Or what we could do is I could recap, and then by then it should be done, and then we're just gonna end the video. Okay. So to recap everything, we created a FastAPI backend, which had two endpoints. One is a get video endpoint, and one is a post endpoint. The get videos endpoint is just doing a select star statement on the video table, and then ordering everything in descending order so that the most recent video is at the top. When it comes to looking at the schema, do we have the schema here? Yeah. So if we go to show structure, so the schema of our table was very simple. We had an auto incrementing ID, we had a video title and a video URL. Once we get all the rows, we are iterating through them and creating a list of this video model, data model, which is being returned to the front end. Before returning, we're closing both the cursor and the connection. Our second endpoint is uploading the video. For uploading the video, we are at first parsing the request body as an upload file object. What this means is FastAPI can extract things like the name of the file and the type of the file very easily. Then we are storing the file in S3 with the file name set to whatever the file was in your computer. We're also setting the access control to public read. That means everyone in the internet can read this file. Normally you wouldn't really set it to public, we're just doing it for convenience. Once the upload is successful, we are creating the URL of S3 because it's a predictable URL. We just need the name of the bucket and the name of the file, both of which we have. So now we know where in S3 the file has been uploaded to. So we connect to our Postgres database and insert the video title and video URL. The ID is auto incrementing, so we don't need to worry about that. The video title is just the name of the file right now, and the video URL is the S3 URL that we got from here. Once that's done, we're committing our changes so that everything is written to disk and closing the cursor and the connection, finally returning a 201, which is like a resource created. And yeah, that is pretty much the backend. Looking at the front end, it's a pretty simple React application. Is that done? There you go. Our file is done. It's a 2-minute 20-second video and the quality is very high. No wonder it took this long. All right, moving back over here. For the front end, we are using Chakra UI to show for easy front end components. We're using useState hook and useEffect. useState to store some local variables, and useEffect to make our HTTP call. Everything is going to be wrapped in Chakra provider over here. And yeah, I'm not going to go through the component tree because it's pretty self-explanatory. But if you need anything, just leave it in the comments and I can get back to you. In terms of some of the logic, we're using the useEffect hook to get all the videos. And we're recalling this endpoint whenever the upload successful variable changes. Now the question is, when do we change it? We change it once an upload is successful so that we can go ahead and refetch all the videos, and this time the payload is gonna have our new video in it. We have a show spinner which just toggles between on and off when we are uploading a file and when the upload is successful. We saw it pretty clearly. We have all videos, which is literally the list of all the videos coming from the backend. We have another state variable called isSelected. This pretty much makes sure whether our this makes sure whether the button is clickable or not based on whether a file has been selected or not. And then finally we have selected file, which is literally the file you select in the front end. So we stored that before uploading. When you click the button, so when you click the upload video button, this is the function that gets called. It makes sure the spinner is showing because we are processing the file. It creates a form data object with the selected file, so the file you just uploaded. And then we make our post request to the videos endpoint. When the request is done, so it's successful, we go ahead and toggle upload successful. This makes sure that the fetch call is happening again and we're getting all the videos, including the new one we just uploaded. And we set the spinner to false so that we don't see the spinner anymore. That brings us back to the app. So that's how the whole thing is working. We're just gonna do one more video to end things up so that I can show you how it works. Okay, so I'm gonna do it from scratch. All right, so right now the button is not clickable. No file is chosen. Let's go ahead and select a file. I'm gonna choose this one. Oh, oopsie. Oh, let's go ahead and refresh. This has gone crazy. Okay, so we are gonna go ahead and choose a file. Okay, so the file is selected. Oh, that's why we're double clicking that place. No wonder. All right, once again, we are gonna click. There you go. The file has been uploaded. Not uploaded. The file has been selected and the button is clickable. We're gonna click upload video. The spinner shows up. The backend is processing right now. We're gonna give it a few seconds because the backend has to extract the file, send it to S3, construct the URL, store the URL in Postgres, and then return. Finally, we're done. You can see the new video is right at the front, and then you have all the other videos over here. For the video itself, you still have controls over here if you want to watch it in full screen or do anything with it. So yeah, that is the app pretty much. So I also gave you a recap of how the whole thing works. So hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. With that said, I hope you have a good rest of the day and I'm gonna catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.